My name is Joseph Patron, and I'm going to be telling you about my experiences in an Inclusion Regents level chemistry class at Flushing High School in Queens, New York. At Flushing High School, I've been observing in Mrs. Rita Barris's Period 3 chemistry class. The class is at a capacity of 34 students, and 4 of the students have IEPs. All the disabilities in the class can be categorized as mild, as all 4 of the students have slight learning disabilities, and 1 has a speech impairment. Now that I've given you a quick rundown of my observations, I'll go into a little more detail about my daily experiences. My day starts with me hitting the snooze button on my alarm clock anywhere from 2 to 6 times. Soon enough, my mom knocks on my door or yells at me to wake up, so I'm not late. I hop in the shower, put on my Sunday best, and grab the fancy little ID card that they gave me at the school. Soon enough, I'm out the door and on the road.
Oh, I just tried. It doesn't matter where. I put my foot to the floor, let the wind blow through my hair.
After the drive, and about taking 15 minutes to find free and legal parking, I finally enter the school, and
I'm here to learn, everybody.
After a few sessions observing Mrs. Barris's class, I inquired with her about special education. She did note that she knew that there were a few students in her class with IEPs, but to double check, she shows me ARIS. ARIS is a program run by the New York City Department of Education that gives teachers an at-a-glance look at their class rosters, noting if students currently have IEPs or are English language learners. It also notes if the students are former special education students or former ELLs, which I also find a little bit useful. After checking out ARIS, we were able to note the 4 students who have IEPs, as well as 2 ESL students in the class. Being that it was still relatively early in the year, Mrs. Barris had allowed the students to sit wherever they had wanted. Interestingly enough, 2 of the students with IEPs happened to sit next to each other in class and also work in the same land group. However, she did plan on changing the seating arrangement anyways, to hinder some of the misbehavior some students were executing, and noted she would look into gauging where to sit the students with special needs. However, not much was really done to show support for those students, as much of the movement was just to break up groups of friends and to get better behavioral results. Being that none of the students with IEPs in the class have behavioral issues, it was not something I was really able to observe. Of the behavioral issues, it was simply students talking in class, or coming in late, or being disruptive. However, if there happen to be students with noted behavioral issues on their IEP, simple ways to work with the students include placing them away from disruptive students, making sure the student is always kept busy and engaged in the lesson by making sure the content falls within the zone of proximal development, and keeping the classroom as distraction-free as possible. The room in which the class is taught, however, would be possibly the worst sort for any student with behavior issues, as where one of the biology teachers keeps all of his animals, so distractions are high in the classroom. Luckily, it is managed well, and sometimes the smell of the animals deters students wanting to look at them. I also asked Mrs. Barris about the big, scary word teachers fear most: differentiation. Being that this is an optional course, most of the students taking chemistry have the abilities, so there's little need to slow down the pace of the curriculum for the students with special needs. Her method of differentiation, which is one I completely agree with in this situation, is simply giving the students different options. Mrs. Barris is a big proponent of group work, and allows each student in the group to work with his or her own strength. She feels that by allowing freedom, it gives the students more confidence in what they do, as well as letting them learn from their peers. Recently, the class received a test on the structure of an atom, and the results were not so great. So Ms. Barris saw an opportunity to differentiate even more. Based on the results of the test, she rearranged seats once again, grouping students with similar scores together. By doing this, she was allowing each group to work together to go through the material again, until they have mastered it. 2 groups did so well on the test that she's allowing them to go on to the next section, and realized that it may take longer for some groups than others to understand the material. However, she feels it will be effective in the long run. Of the 4 students with IEPs, 1 is in a mid-range group, while the other 3 are in lower scoring groups. By offering these options, it not only instills the content, but it does not single out the students with IEPs, as a class effort to get back on track. This is something I've never really seen before, and I hope it works out for the class. We both want to see the students succeed, and it certainly shows on her behalf by the amount of work she's putting in for the students. To conclude, my observations at Flushing High School have definitely opened my eyes in regards to managing an inclusion-style classroom. I have now seen it in action and work relatively well, and hope to have similar successes. Although maybe, I should have been a cop.